Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Tabletop Turtles. Now, today we're going to be looking at where to buy board games. Obviously, you're going to be going, well, you buy them online, don't you? Or you get them from the shop. What I mean by that is, where can you go to get the best value, and what are some of the pitfalls? Board game prices have gone up quite a lot in recent years, and there's no argument from anybody over that fact. Everything across the whole globe has gone up in price. There's been the energy price crisis and just a general cost of living. But when you are somebody that really enjoys board games, like myself and like many of you, you really want to be able to get the most bang for your buck. So where are the best places to buy board games? What are the tips and tricks to use on each of those sites? And are there places to avoid? Now, a game like Heat, which is still a very in-demand and popular game, is just coming back into the stores and is going to be selling for £65 to £70. Now, that's a decent chunk of money. And then when you go up to something like Horseless Carriage, the new Splotter game, you're looking at the best part of £100. And some of the Kickstarters and crowdfunding games, you're talking £200, £300, £400. Now, yes, I know there are some people out there that can afford to do that and go, okay, well, I work hard, or and I have that disposal. That is absolutely fine. This is not meant to be oh, you shouldn't spend your money or anything like that. Please don't think that. This is just for me to give you ideas on where you can look to maybe save a couple of pounds here and there. But it's not categorically, this is the best thing to do. This is just my observations. So, where do we go to buy board games? And what are some of the tips? Well, this isn't a top 10. This is not, although, funnily enough, there are 10 topics, but this is just in no particular order some of the things that I think people can look at. You're probably already doing a lot of them already. So, without any further ado, let's have a look. General online stores. So, with a general online store like Argus, WH Smith, Waterstones, John Lewis, yes, you will find some board games listed on there. They will tend to be the more popular, almost mainstream games. Games like Pandemic or Catan. Codenames is making a lot more of an appearance. Splendor, games like that are generally becoming much more known throughout the retail market. What are the positives and negatives? Well, the positive is these are stores where they have stock rooms. They will have a warehouse. So you're not going to order something and then them suddenly say, oh, we haven't got that in stock. Or it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. And the delivery is usually pretty quick, but you do pay for it. However, you will also tend, unless you're lucky, pay the recommended retail price or very close to it. So yes, you can get the game, but you're going to be paying pretty much full market price for it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That is the recommended retail price. It is up to the store what they charge, whether they charge less on that. This is more about trying to save, give you options of where to look to save a little bit. So they're all right, but certainly wouldn't be anywhere close to my top recommendations. So realistically, I would say a pass on that unless you're stuck. So what's the next one? Fun enough, the next one is actually the bricks and mortar versions of those shops. You can go into an Argus, you can go into a WH Smith, you can go into a Waterstones, and they might have the game you're looking for there. Again, it's going to be a very limited selection. It's most likely going to be the more popular ones. I will add the caveat that Waterstones over time have been getting much better at this, and it is quite often down to, or my understanding, is it quite often down to the regional manager or the branch manager, what games they get in. So the more that person is interested in the board games industry, the more better the selection. But again, it's going to be a recommended retail price, and you're not really going to make any savings. But you can pick up the game, you can go to the counter, you can hand over your hard-earned money, and you can walk out with the game there and then. Absolutely fantastic. No problem with that at all. And if you're out and about, and if you're somebody that doesn't really know the board game industry that well, that's a good alternative. You know, you can get the game there and then. Right, so what's next then? Amazon. Now, yes, Amazon get a lot of bad rep and all this. If you have Amazon Prime and you're buying a board game, you're going to get 9 times out of 10 next day delivery. And that's one of the huge selling points. You order it online and boom, it's there the next day. Fantastic if you want to get something last minute. However, again, with Amazon, the board games tend to be on the more expensive side. That's not to say you don't get the occasional bargain, but they don't tend to feature so much in the day lightning deals, the Black Friday deals, especially not in the UK. In America, yes, board games are a lot more highly rated by Amazon over there, and yes, it is much more often that they will be in the Black Friday deals or in daily deals. Over here in the UK, not so much. And you also have to be aware that sometimes when you're ordering goods from Amazon, there'll be a little tick box, which if you don't spot it, it's all about the game shipping in its own packaging. This is its own packaging. So you might, not always, but you might suddenly get home and find your brand new £100 game is there in its shrink wrap in this box with a nice fat label on it. Or if you're really unlucky, actually on the box itself. Now, obviously, as far as they're concerned, a box is for storing. That's it. We as board gamers are a lot more precious about our boxes because they're on display. You wouldn't expect somebody to put a sticker on a book and post it through the post without putting it in the package, would you? And that's the same with board games. Yes, it might be a box, but it's like the cover of a book as far as I'm concerned. And that's not very good. Yes, you can return it and they'll replace it and all the rest of it, but it is a little faff. So again, not somewhere that I would overly recommend, but quite adequate. There is, however, a little tip with Amazon. Every so often, what I do is I will go to the general section of board games or game toys and games, and then games, and go look at games and board games and accessories, and then I will search on Prime. Always do Prime, because you don't want to get any of the dodgy knockoffs, of which Amazon have got better, but you still see them creep up. But you do the Prime and do lowest price, and then start scrolling through. And once you get to about the £7 to £10 mark, sometimes you can find the odd little bargain. I've got one that's up here, which I'm going to do an unboxing of. I'm not going to tell you what the name of it was, because obviously it'll be in the unboxing video, so you'll need to watch that. But it's a game that everywhere else is selling for about £35, £40, and I paid £9.99. So £9.99, next day delivery, happy days. That is a saving. There was a period not too long ago when Amazon was rife with counterfeit games, especially for games like Terraforming Mars, some of the Oink games. They have cleaned up their act a lot, but the reason that those games were getting through those counterfeits is Amazon stock was all held all together. So Asmodee supplies and so supplies and Fred Blogg supplies were all put into one pile. And then when you bought it, you just got one from that pile. And unfortunately, some of the more unscrupulous sellers produce counterfeit items, knowing this, ship them in, bang. It was Russian roulette over whether you got a counterfeit. They have cleaned up their acts a lot more, and they are able to identify which seller an item came from a lot more easily. And I've not heard of counterfeits coming from Amazon for a little while. It's not to say it won't happen. I'm just pointing out the different areas that you need to be aware of. So bargains can be found, but you've got to put a bit of legwork in for it. So what's next then? Well, next up, I'm going to say charity shops, the bricks and mortar versions. So your Oxfam, your British Heart Foundation, your Scope, the general high street bricks and mortar. Now, if you are part of any Facebook games group or anything like that, you will hear stories of people going, "Oh, I found a copy of Discworld New in Shrink and paid £5 for it." Yes, that can happen. And if you happen to find a copy like that, fantastic, good on you. That's an absolute bargain. But I just want to point out, you hear those stories, and I'm not for 1 minute saying they're not true, but how often do you hear those? So you hear 1, 2, or 3 a week, or even 7 a week. That is 7 people across the entire country that went into 7 charity shops and happened to find. How many charity shops are there in the UK? Exactly. It's the chances of finding a gem, especially if you are somewhere where it's a smaller community. I, for example, live near a village where it's a smallish population, and we do have 3 or 4 charity shops, but there isn't a massive board gaming market. So you tend to know if somebody's going to put in a board game into the charity shop because they'll have already offered it to you for sale. So it's very rare that they come up. They do come up, and if you happen to spot one, but don't trawl around all the charity shops expecting to find an original Battlestar Galactica in new in shrink and pay £3 or £4 for it. It's just not going to happen, or it's very unlikely to happen. Let's be realistic. So yes, you can find bargains, but don't break your back going all over the country, because you'll end up spending more in fuel and legwork than you'd actually save. Well, now I'm going to say online charity shops. When I say online charity shops, what I mean is shops that have maybe a storefront on eBay or have their own website charity shop. The reason this is actually separate from the bricks and mortar is it's not just one store. It is the entire of BHF, or the entire of Oxfam, or the entire of Scope, or whichever charity, cancer research. Shops from up and down the country have put the games on there. And so you're going to have more chance to find games. And you normally pay a bit of postage and they'll post it out. That being said, they have become a lot more savvy over the value of board games these days. You're not going to see huge bargains. You will save money. You will save money on the retail price, as opposed to in the bricks and mortar, where some of them just Google it and knock a fiver off the retail price. They're not all bad like that, but it does happen. Just they're not aware of it. So online, you're going to get a better deal, and you're going to have a wider selection. So it is worth having a look at the online stores, and it is extremely worthwhile going onto eBay, and putting down the charity shops that you can find as saved sellers. Yes, it can be feast and famine, but every so often you get, 3 or 4 games. And yes, other people are aware of them, but you're not going to be paying full value. You can pick up brand new games still in shrink, or you could pick up used copies. The only downside with charity games is, while they do give them a quick check, they deal with thousands and thousands of items every day. So there is always the possibility that the game might not be complete. I've actually not had one. I've bought quite a few through charity shops online, and, touch cardboard, I've never had anything missing. Now, saying about storefronts on eBay, that leads me into the next one. eBay itself. Now, with eBay itself, you have hundreds of thousands of listings. And some of them are going to be the modern manufacturer popular games, and some are going to be games that we tend to buy more readily. So it takes a bit of time. And my tip for eBay is, when you're going to go and don't search for a particular game. Don't go on there looking for a particular game unless you're actually after a particular game. Go on there, go to the toys and games, go to the games, and then go to traditional board and card games, and then go to modern manufacturer. And then when you've got your listing up, choose the option that says ending soonest. And as you scroll through, you'll see lots of Scenits, Monopolies, Scrabbles, and then you'll start to find the odd gem. Now, you're not going to find this at 99p. If somebody's selling this on there, they're going to be wanting £90 to £100 for it. If somebody was selling Heat on there, they would probably currently have it listed for about £80 to £100 on there, because it's not in print and this is a short print. You're looking for the less well-known games, or games that have been around for a while that don't get a lot of talk about, that actually come along and surprise you. I actually picked up a game from eBay the other day, Legacy of Dragonholt. Now that's a story-driven RPG. It's rated, I think it's 7.2 on BoardGame Geek, and it's actually quite an enjoyable game. And I paid, including the postage, I paid about £15 or £16. So for me, a game that you would spend £30 on to buy new, and then maybe have postage on top if you ordered it online, is, well worth it. Well, next up, I'm going to talk about board game cafes. Now, there has been a resurgence of board game cafes opening. Unfortunately, due to how harsh the industry is, there's been lots of board game cafes close as well. And that's really sad, because they're a fantastic place to go. For just a few pounds, you can go, you can sit, you can play games, you can eat some lovely food, have something nice to drink, and generally have a fantastic time for not a huge amount of money, and probably spend a hell of a lot less than you would do if you went to the pub. With the added advantage that while you're there, if you've played a game and you think, oh, I really like that, I'd like to play that again, you could potentially buy a copy there and then. So the big advantage is quite often you'll get to try a game before you actually buy it. Or you buy a game, tear off the shrink, sit down at a table and play it. The prices, however, do tend to be closer to a recommended retail price again. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not for 1 minute belittling the market pricing structure. That is its recommended retail price, and that's where the shop is. The shop's there to try and survive. They can't do it for nothing. But the big plus in my book is they have staff there that play board games, that know board games. They will be able to help you with the game. And for board game cafes, I'm talking about things like somewhere like Ludicrous in London, or you've got the BoardGame huts over near Norwich. They're fantastic places to visit, really friendly, really welcoming, and you can have a great time in there for not a huge amount of money. So very well worth visiting. And occasionally you walk in and they'll have something on special and you can go, yeah, I'll have that, thank you very much. So yes, definitely a place to consider. Next up, friendly local game stores, or FLGS. The FLGs. Absolutely 100% recommend. Places like Travelling Man, Counterculture, Fanboy 3, Mondo Comico, they are local businesses that are owned by local people, and they really need your support. They are people that know games. They love games and they're passionate about games, and they want to share that love with you, and they want you to have a good experience. So the customer service in a board game shop is going to be good. There is, if you get bad customer service in a board game shop, they don't deserve to be in business. That is the industry they're in. They should be passionate about that. They will quite often have loyalty schemes. They will have clearance items. They will sometimes have an online arm as well. Yes, you're not going to save a fantastic fortune. You're not going to get something for half price unless it's in a clearance sale. But the chances are you will save a few bob off the recommended retail price. So £100 game, you might pick it up for 85 or 90. Any saving is a saving when it comes to, I know that sounds silly, but any saving is better than nothing, is what I'm trying to put across. So yes, 100%, they need your support. They're really finding things tough at this with these pricing crises and everything. Everything's going up except for wages, so we've got less money to spend. So what little we have got, they deserve our support because they're there for us. They run board game events. They are the beating heart of the industry, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of the time. Next up is one you probably wouldn't have expected me to say, which is board game conventions. Now, at board game conventions, if you go there and you go to the general parts, you're not going to save a fortune. They might be online prices or there or thereabouts, but you tend to not pay recommended retail price. You save a couple of quid here and there. And you can generally get the new hotness, unless it's so hot that it's sold out by the time you get there. As happened to me with Sagrada when that came out. Couldn't find it for love nor money. And that was at the UK Games Expo. So these things happen, but you will generally have no problem picking up the hottest, newest games at a board game convention. The reason I suggest board game conventions is for their bring and buys. If you've got some old games or some games that you no longer play, you've fallen out of love with, or you've replaced with something that you consider to be better, take them along to the bring and buy, put them in, let somebody else love them. And if you price them reasonably, and I do see some stupid pricing on them, if you price them reasonably, you'll sell. So you'll earn a little bit of money and you can reinvest that with buying some new games from the bring and buy. Games that other people have decided they don't want anymore. So it's extending the life of the game and it's giving you games that you wouldn't have necessarily played. And you're not going to be paying stupid money. You're going to be getting it at a reasonable price. So that's almost the list completed. The last one is one that you probably were expecting me to have said when I said Amazon, and that's your friendly online game stores. Now, for these, I'm talking about Firestorm cards, I'm talking about Chaos cards, I'm talking about Kienda. They provide the shopping experience that you would get potentially in a more of a FLGS. They will have good prices because they don't have the bricks and mortar stores quite so much. They tend to have just a warehouse. So their overheads are lower, so they can afford to price the game slightly better. So you will tend to get a better bargain. Delivery tends to be quick. They tend normally to pack the games very well, so they'll always arrive safe and sound. There have been some stories about certain retailers recently with bad packaging and stuff like that. I'm not here to go into that at all. Generally, they're very good at doing packaging. They'll more and more they're having loyalty schemes. You buy a game and you get so many points or so much credit, And, if you've bought several games over a period of time, you've got that credit and you can get a nice chunk off another game. Some of them are better than other loyalty schemes, but anything that gets you a reduction on the retail price is a win. Now, there's a section that quite a lot of online board game shops have, which is the damage, dent and ding clearance section. Do not overlook these. A lot of people in the board game world are very, very critical about their boxes. I touched on it briefly earlier about the damage, but you get some people that it's got a little crease on the corner, or that there's a little tear on one edge. And I'm not talking about ripped to shreds. I'm talking like an inch or, just a small bit of damage. And people will return them because it is not absolutely pristine. That's fine. They paid for a product. They want it that particular way. That's up to them, and that's fine. What that does then mean is that the board game retailer can't sell it because it's probably out of shrink or it's been returned as damaged. So they will sell it at a reduced price. And again, you can get some fabulous deals that way. If you are prepared to receive a box that's got a bit of corner creasing or might have a little tear in the cover, they're not going to sell you a game that can't be played. They're going to sell you a game that is perfectly fine to be played, just that they can't sell it at full price, so they've reduced it. And lo and behold, you've got yourself a perfectly good, great game for not a huge amount of money. Some of the savings to be had can be as much as half price. Well, that's my thoughts. What do you think? Why don't you put your comments down below? Let me know what you think is a good place. Is there somewhere that you always go online to buy from? Or does your friendly local game store need a shout out? Is there somewhere or someone that you always go to first? I'd love to hear it, because I will quite happily give them a shout out. I'm not sponsored by any retailers or any games. I just talk about the games that I love and the things that matter to me in the industry. Hopefully you find that interesting, and hopefully that you'll click like and subscribe, and you'll click the bell wherever that is. It's over there, I think. I want to pass on my love of board games to you, and not just, oh, this is a great game, you must buy it, but what I think about the industry. There's so much going on at the moment that it's fantastic. And if I can help you make an informed choice, I'd love to do that. And if ever I am sponsored by anybody or somebody sends me a game for review, you will always get told that right at the beginning, that this is sponsored by, or this game was provided by. Because I want to be open and honest with you, and that's why I'm doing videos like this. Where do I go to buy my games? What is important to me? I don't have a bottomless pit of money, so I buy games at the best value I can. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and look out for more videos coming soon from the Tabletop Turtles. Thank you for watching. Thanks for watching the latest Tabletop Turtles video. Don't forget to click like, subscribe and hit that bell to be notified of new Tabletop Turtles content. Until next time, Turtles out!